Hello everybody, Doobie Dub here with his 12-gallon Platy tank. No CO2. These are blue Mickey Mouse Platies. Assorted males and females. I've already started making babies. That one is very pregnant right there. Zoom in a bit. And just Platy tank at the moment. There are some pong snails, or not pong snails, sorry, bladder snails in there, I guess you call them, tadpole snails. Just keep the place clean, like the maintenance crew, you know. Like, I don't know, people always seem to bash on the little tadpole snails, or bladder snails, but they're pretty innocuous little creatures. Like, if you give them too much food, of course they will utilize that excess nutrients to propagate themselves in proportion, but as long as you keep their food under control, which is basically this detritus waste and dead leaves and algae, then they can't really proliferate but so much. Let's see if I can get a focus here. Sometimes peeking in there, I can see a little baby swimming around, but kind of hard to spot sometimes. But that's the whole point, though, is if they're hard to spot, then some will survive. In a fish-only tank without any real cover for them, they would all just get snapped up relatively quickly, and may even none survive in a situation. If you have a lot of dense tangled up plants like these chain swords and these Kleiner swords, or they're mini chain swords rather, and dwarf Sagittaria is good, and especially like these banana plants, like they're almost like a little fish cage, and gives bananas a place to hide, but they're rather easy to grow as well. Banana plants are, they just dip their toes into the sand. Haven't tried growing them in gravel before, but they really like sand. Sand pea rock mix, cap gravel would be nice. But yeah, any place they can hide is good. And forgive the unsightly hair algae everybody always hates it, but it's kind of like a new tank thing, I guess, as well as the light that was on here. Now you got the HG957 Higer, and this is, I believe, the 20-inch model, and it's a much better light, vegetative, more of a vegetative spectrum than a full-on 10-12,000 Kelvin spectrum, which is something I prefer to have, especially on establishing planted tanks. But hopefully that will go away. There's actually a piece of hornwort in there still living. Not a huge fan of hornwort, but it comes sometimes. In the I can't remember. I think those were mini swords of some kind, and they're starting to grow back bit by bit, but that old light just wasn't powerful enough for them, and they yellowed out pretty hard. Hopefully I saved them before they got too bad, but same thing for the red flame sword. It's a beautiful plant, but requires a bit of light, 2 to 3 watts per gallon. Higher light's just as usual. When you put it on the tank made for the light, pretty much it's going to give you about 2 watts per gallon, as it should. But let's see, some spider driftwood, some Sirius stone. Stuff is really nice. Like, almost looks like moon rock or something. Natural concrete. It's very nice. Neutral stone as well. And yeah, it can be difficult, I guess, like I was saying, to tell the difference. Upon close inspection, you can see that being live bearers, they have their conforming anatomical parts, I guess, to keep it PG-13. So, and forgive me for not knowing offhand the correct terms for these specialized fins, but females basically just have a single wide fin, and the males will have a single longer fin towards the rear of their anal fins. And they're also generally a little brighter, a little bit like skinnier. Like, the females get a lot chunkier, especially when they're gravid or gravid. large female there is quite pregnant indeed. Starting to get that classic boxed off shape to her belly and chest. If you can see it, but and her gravid spot as well is darkening, so she's within a few hours probably, or a day or two, of giving birth to some babies. Probably won't be a giant brood, but some more babies. And it's one of the things as well, is if you don't have a plan for live bearers and you give them an ideal habitat, they, like the pond snails, will the bladder snails will proliferate themselves quite readily. Predation will get all but the weariest in the situation where the tank is planted, but it's not super dense like this one, and maybe 10-20% of the young would survive predation by the older fish. While platies aren't very aggressive, they have a natural instinct to predate the weaker young. I'm sure you all biology students probably know more about that than I do. But yep, this is what it does. We got a dual sponge filter on there, nothing fancy. Tetra air pump. I think it's like a Tetra 50 or something, whatever they call them. Vivasun titanium heater. I rather like these heaters, shatterproof and all that. Seem to maintain a fairly accurate temperature. Of course, the top of that bar would be. You can't even read it, but anyways, it keeps the temperature relatively stable, within 1 degree or so. Digital readout, all that nonsense. Used some Carib Sea Naturals, Moonlight Sand, whatever flavor you like, although the sand does seem to have a very, very fine grain to it. Quartzy sand with some mica mixed in probably, and gives it a shiny look to it. But it's easy to get it to turbulate, but once it's sitting down, it kind of has an elasticity property to it, which is nice because it gives the plant something to really root into and hold into. Almost it makes like a fluid cement that never quite hardens. Very neat stuff. We were talking about that one time, another guy and I, about the difference between sands, and every sand is the same and stuff. And it's not really the case. Not all sands are created equal, unfortunately, and some sands make more of a mess than others. This pretty clean sand. The other type I had a Carib Sea Naturals. It was more of a tan sand, and that stuff really will tan the water up almost like a clay is mixed into it or something. It's not going to harm the fish or anything, so it's not going to harm the plants. It's just a bit unsightly, like algae, but it'll go away eventually. And even with just a single dual sponge filter, it stays relatively clear in here, and all that good stuff. Just got to have that proper lighting cycle. Really don't need more than 11-12 hours of light a day anymore. It's just kind of excessive. Something's going to utilize that excess energy, and it's probably going to be algae. You can't really replace watts per gallon with duration of light per day. It doesn't quite work that way. As we see, because the old light that was on there was a 24/7 light, as a lot of these are marketed, which may work well in certain situations, but not for a simple Waldstad tank. I don't think. In my opinion, I would just have a dedicated 6500 Kelvin grow light, and if I ever wanted to go further and flower or get those extra colors, I'd probably go with a roseate light as an extra supplementation to that 6500K, just to get more of those spectrums that the plants really feed off of. And I'm sure you could look up more about that if you choose. Different spectrums do different things, of course. So we're all trying to simulate some type of environment with our aquariums, and this, some sort of Amazon or a Crystal River type biotope going here. This water is actually very, very mildly brackish at about 1.002 to 1.004 specific gravity, or milligrams per cubic liter, I guess you could say. So it's not very salty at all. Marine water somewhere like 1.0020 or something. 1.020. May have always skipped a zero. But we eccentric guys have a problem with our zeros and our decimals sometimes. Anyways, hope it was slightly informative and get to see a little bit about my newest tank setup here. Maybe next I'll do one of the other tanks. Have a great evening, and see y'all soon.